All right. Buenos dias and welcome everyone to Critical Conversations. I'm so very excited to have my friend Vanessa Pattison here. She is a yoga studio owner and she is residing in San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua, which is where I met her, fell madly in love with her and her studio, Zen Yoga. She does teacher trainings, private trainings. I'm hoping I'm going to join her and her lovely, lovely mom in India next spring, putting that on the to-do list. And yeah, Vanessa, do you want to share anything with the audience before we dive into today's conversation?
No, I'm just happy to be here and excited to catch up and see your beautiful face and talk about all things of my life in San Juan and my journey being here. And that's about all.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so why don't we start at the beginning? Because I think, the inspiration for my podcast is to talk about things that people tend to shy away from. And I think it's unique to live in the States and then be like, meh, I'm going to go live abroad. So let's start there. Can you tell us what was the inspiration that brought you and your partner down south?
Yeah, I think I know it's been so long that it's our life, but I try to remember for those who are like curious about how you make that transition and what the journey was like. We were living in Ventura, California, and both working. I was a real estate appraiser, and he was working at a biotech company. And I think we went on a trip to Europe, actually. And we were kind of out of the rat race for a good spell of time on that trip. And we started talking about, is there a way we could live part of the year in another country? We could just see the next years flying by and the next, rung on the ladder, the next thing acquired. And it was just seeming like something was missing, or maybe not even missing, but just like a calling or like an itch.
Yeah.
And then we went to Costa Rica for my closest friend at the time, Stephanie's wedding. And my husband had surfed a bunch in Costa Rica in college. And so then the conversation became like, could we live somewhere like Central America half the year? And yeah. And then like the next steps were maybe we'll take a sabbatical from work. We weren't really ready to like walk completely away from the life we had created. And so we did so. He had a relationship with his company where he could do that, and I as well. So we kind of put our foot in the shallow end and just kind of tested the waters. And then we kind of honed in on San Juan del Sur, because when we had been in Costa Rica for that trip, they kind of said, oh, San Juan is like what Costa Rica used to be 20 years ago. And so, yeah, we just started honing in on this area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love Nicaragua and the people there. So for me, it was the variance between Costa Rica and Nicaragua. It was the people, because I think culturally they're just different. I don't know. Can you explain, I mean, now that you've been there, let's start with how many years have you been there, and what comes up for you when I say the people of Nicaragua?
Oh, sure. Well, we moved here in 2005. So what year is it now? We've been here a long time.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah. So wow. A lot of my adult life, because we moved here when I was 27 and I'm 46 now. So, my mid to late 20s, my entire 30s, and now more than half of my 40s. So it's really crazy. Wow. I don't think that we would have ever believed we'd still be here all these many years later. But when we tested the waters, like what I mentioned before, and took the sabbaticals from work, when it was time to go back and decide, did we want to go back to that life? My husband was being headhunted to this other company, and life was good there. There wasn't like, a lot of people have this idea that people are escaping by coming here, like that they're escaping something, but we had a very fine life there. It was exciting to kind of push ourselves in this direction. So when we went back, we realized, no, we're going to continue on in San Juan and kind of create the life that was starting to unfold. which was, for him getting into building, and then for me getting in, just not being an appraiser. That was not going to be my long-term dream job. So, and when I started to be able to do a little yoga with people, I was like, oh yeah, this feels more authentic. This feels great.
Yeah.
But yeah, a long time, almost 20 years.
That's insane. So what do you think it is that makes the people of Nicaragua so attractive? I mean, because I'm assuming that's why you've continued to stay.
For sure. I think, well, having had 3 kids here as well, the family dynamic and just being together, and my son's about to go to college next, well, he's got another year, but he's planning and getting his college resume together, and he's trying to kind of come up with this story of his life. And by helping him and working with him on that, I've started to see how beautiful this life has been and the richness of this culture and the people. And we were coming up with trying to kind of capture what it's like to live here day to day and be, well, really him feeling Nicaraguan. And he was saying, like, you have to really leave anywhere you're trying to walk to like 20 minutes early, because it's more important to stop and say hello and acknowledge this person, whether they're just someone you barely know or a good friend in the street, than it is to get where you're going.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the hardest part for me going back and forth is when I come back here, I end up being very frustrated at the hustle of like how little we take time here to connect, and how everything is like the quickest modality. You drive through to get your coffee, you drive through to get all these things, you get Amazon deliveries. Like there's the lack of human engagement and connections. And there's beauty to that too, right? Because you can get a lot done. But for me, Nicaragua's culture, it's not like anywhere else I've ever been. And similar to you, I've been places in Europe and Central and South America. And we always end up back in Nicaragua because
there's a magnet here. Pulling you back.
Exactly. So let's talk about, so you've been there for almost 20 years. You have 3 kids. One is getting ready to head off to college. When did you decide, okay, I'm going to open a yoga studio?
Okay, it's a funny story, actually. My sister had messaged me, I don't even know what year this was, and she said, oh, yoga journal. So it was back when people read magazines, first of all. So it was before really so much was going on the internet, I guess. But she goes, oh, yoga journal is running this thing, and if you send your story and picture in, you could be in the yoga journal magazine. And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. And she's like, no, do it. Your story is so cool. And so I had a friend, Heather Van Dornick. Her name is Blue. She has, she did Big Sky Ranch here, Rancho Chillamate. She took a picture of me like in a red bikini, like in lotus pose. And I wrote my story, and then I made it to the top 5 out of like 3,000 people. And then I didn't win, which was fine. But I was like, well, now what am I going to do? And my husband's business partner at the time said, well, I think you need to open your own yoga studio. Because at this time I'd been teaching here and there. And I was like, well, where would this be? And we started thinking about a place, and we drafted up on a little napkin, a little plan. And that was sort of the seed. And it just started to take shape and grow. And it's been the most grounding thing, because I feel before Zen Yoga opened, I always sort of had one foot out of the country, like, I don't know, I just want to go where the lights always turn on and the water always comes out of the spigot. And and there's not, whatever. But,
yeah.
It always comes back to that same idea of wherever you go, there you are. Like,
yeah, you
can be in the most beautiful place and not appreciate it, not feel happy, and you can be, and you can suffer, or you can, like, just wherever you go, make it peaceful. It really is truly, like, if you use the yoga, the point is that you get yourself right. So
yeah,
right now there's some alarm going off in the distance. You might be able to hear it. You cannot. This country is loud and bustling, and alive, and they're living much closer to nature. You know, by being here, the homes are a lot of them are very basic, and the outside comes in. So you just have to learn to deal with the elements, right?
Yeah. Well, and I always feel like it really helps regulate my nervous system because you realize what you have control over. So like what we both and the listeners have control over right now is to focus on what we want to hear, right?
Yes. And if you've been to my yoga class, you know that's like one of the themes almost every other day.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can't control the elements. You can't control what is outside of you. But you can control the way that you show up, the way that you react, the way that you allow it to affect you, right?
Yes. And I think some days I do better than others because, you know, we are all doing the best we can. And sometimes you just lose it.
Yeah, totally. So when you decided, okay, we're going to draft Zen Yoga on a little napkin, what was the biggest hurdle to overcome being an American in a native country?
I think just for me, even when we built our house, is it okay? Like getting permission, like, you know, of course anyone can be anywhere, but you want to come in mindfully with the neighbors and introduce yourself and explain what you're doing. It's a touchy area because you don't want to have them be like, oh no, you can't do that either. But it's just an idea of like, hey, I'd like to introduce myself and let you know that I'm building this. And then just start to, you know, for me, it's not that hard. It wasn't that hard in Nicaragua to start a business. You just need to make sure you're going by the book and following the rules. And, you know, I think that they're happy to have businesses here and have tourism here. So, and it wasn't like I was taking any jobs from a local either because they weren't teaching yoga. I wasn't competing in the market here for this particular work. And also I was able to create, you know, some jobs through it, the front desk and like a cleaning person, for example. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen, you know, my experience with you is in the last like 3 or 4 years. And what I've seen is nothing but a sense of compassion and like, what's the word I want to use? It's like mindfulness for the community. Like you host meditations and you ask for donations, and those donations go directly to support the local community, you know, and you are very like approachable as far as like if a local wants to come take yoga and they can't afford it, you're like, whatever, like you're here, come do it. And so I think you have a very unique approach, which I think is why you're still around and why so many people, I mean, if you guys ever have been to Zen Yoga or you look at her Instagram, her classes are so full, like shockingly full. I remember probably you were actually, so I went to yoga teacher training and I got burnt out on it. You were my first yoga class back to the practice. And I remember at first I was like, what in the fuck? There are so many people in here. Like, how is anyone supposed to like really extend themselves and like take up space? But the thing is I miss it when I don't have it, because what you actually cultivate in your practice, what you teach is this like, we're here, we're together, we're all connected. And I remember like you would even have us do things where we're in like warrior position and you are like, grab your neighbor's hand. And it's like, Nicaragua is hot. Everyone's sweaty. Everyone smells. Nobody wears deodorant. We're all like, all of us are like half hippies. And it's like those moments though, like that is what keeps us grounded and connected. And that I think is what's missing and why I miss Nicaragua.
Right.
Because
and
there
sort of
is
the corporate world of yoga that can kind of happen. Well, my mom does have deodorant at the desk if anybody forgot it. We did bring that out for a couple of fellas that were coming in. But so, yeah. But I don't know. It's not all the year, actually. Right now, there's only like 8 in class. It's very slow. This is the slow season. So it's only, I would say, January, February, March, or maybe December, January, February, March, where it gets so busy that I add a class and we kind of spread it out a little bit and create some space. But yeah, I actually get more stressed in the high season. I probably even said that when you were there than in the low season, because I'm like, oh gosh, what do I do? I don't want to turn anyone away and blah, blah, blah. And in slow season, I feel a little more, I don't feel like so much expectation on top of it at all.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we try to work with it. It's the space fits probably 20 comfortably. So we were putting 24 in there. So we were getting tight.
Yeah. But I think the thing that is, it works, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it works. And I think that the core of why it works is because you are grounded in this concept of community and this concept of mindfulness, of having the consideration of being like, I'm going to get to know my fellow community. I'm going to go introduce myself, which is why your son is describing, if you want to go somewhere, you go early, right?
Yes. Well, I bet Nicaragua has taught me that, because I came here with all my ideas of how things should be, and definitely struggled to settle into it in the beginning years. And it was also different then. It was much more raw and not so many expats running around. Expats are like foreigners or people that move to another country, in case someone doesn't know that term. But age, growth, your own practice. Hopefully you're starting to embody these things, in your own skin. Yeah.
But I see you out in town, and you are who you are. And I think that is such a beautiful gift that you're giving the universe. I want to talk, because I know you've brought in meditation and you've been holding space for that. You do it virtually and in person. Yeah. That is honestly, I mean, I love you, but I make space for that class specifically because the power of meditation in community, there is nothing in the world like that. So tell me, when did you bring that in? What was the inspiration for that?
Sure. I'd love to. I think that I remember being on the Corn Islands, which are these little islands on the Caribbean side of Nicaragua. And I think I was like 39, and I saw an advertisement that Deepak Chopra, who was the very first person I think I ever meditated with online, he would do these 21-day meditations with Oprah. And I used to, listen to those, and I never would finish them because life, and I'd get off track or whatever. But there was an advertisement that he was going to be in Costa Rica, which is just south of me, like really close. We live very close to the border of Costa Rica. And so I told my husband, I'm going to go to this. And I just booked it. And I had at the time a baby that was still nursing, but I knew I'd be done nursing by this point. And so I was very excited, and I went to Costa Rica for this a year later. And it was a week it wasn't a silent retreat. It was a week meditation retreat with him. It was called Seduction of Spirit. And when we were there, they said there's a course that you can do online. They upsold me, basically. But I was ready to be upsold. And you could do it online for a year and get your certification to teach people meditation. I had no intention of really teaching meditation particularly. I just wanted to have the skill myself, and then I wanted to thread it into my yoga classes. And that's how. And so the year course was beautiful, and I learned so much. And then I was able to say, okay, let's just start adding this in. And I wasn't even concerned if anybody stayed or showed up. I used to do it before the class. Then I later decided to have it after, thinking it'd be easier for people to just roll into it after already practicing. And that's how. And it's just been a beautiful thing. And sometimes people stay, and most of the time, somebody stays. But if they don't, it reminds me of something my friend told me when she was trying to set up meditation. She went to her guru and said, nobody's coming to meditation. And he goes, well, wait a minute. Didn't you say you were showing up? And she goes, oh, yeah. So I really did it for myself. But of course, nothing is happening in a petri dish. And so it spirals out. And then it was like, yeah, let's make this a meditation by donation. I don't even bring it up. If they kind of catch wind that there's a donation process, they do. If they don't, I'm not like putting a jar out. Okay, now donate. No. And so whatever, if they hear about it, if they find out, then we use those monies towards helping somebody. There's always someone coming around needing this or that. And so it's just there. And if it's not, then I might use my own money, but it just somehow is there. And this year for my birthday, I was able to expand it. And I think we got about $2,000 or more in donations. And I was able to do a lot. So it's been fun. It's really been fun.
That is incredible. I mean, for those who don't know, $2,000 in Nicaragua goes a long way. Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. You know, and I think the way that you approach meditation is so, like, it's convenient and it feels really safe. Like this what you create is this really safe space, and that's exactly right. So for me, it's like, it's the permission to give myself this space to stay and do the practice, right? Because that's the thing, is we just don't make time for it.
No, everything else seems more important, right? Like, I gotta get breakfast, I gotta answer the email, almost anything, because it's simple to sit and meditate. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So I think but it's worth it. And I know I ran away from it for a number of years, but it's been the single most important practice that I have. Yeah.
Tell me why it's the single most important practice that you have.
And just 1 second more, I wanted to just say that Deepak really created this sort of container or a template to make it more accessible. Because sort of before that, you had to go to India and find somebody and get your mantra and all these things. And so he really wanted people meditating. And I think that he had a ton of experience with it himself and wanted to be able to get it out to the world. And obviously Oprah is a pretty badass chica. And she, you know, when she's behind anything, it's 20 times more powerful.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Yeah. Why is it the most important practice for me? Well, because otherwise I believe my own thoughts all the time. I believe the story, and I get into the worry, and I get into the future, or I ruminate in the past. And then I remember that, I can sit and just observe myself. And then I can get a little bit of space from that loop, you know, and that's why. And, you know, if I'm flying, and of course, when you travel, it's such an anxiety producing time. This is when I really pull to that, or when my husband and I are having a hard time. I was joking with you earlier, like, the biggest spiritual practice I have is being married for 20 years, you know? Yeah. It's like, there you are again, mirroring back to me all my stuff every day. Great.
You love this. So glad to be here.
So, and also your family notices it too. Like, my husband and my kids noticed when I started regularly meditating, and now they'll even say, maybe could it be that you might need to go take a moment, you know, in your room with your meditation? Good idea.
Oh my gosh. I hate when that's reflected back to me. I mean, I love it because it just means your people love you and they know what works for you. And it is a gentle reminder to take care of yourself. But my husband, Nigel and Rui, they say the same thing. Did you meditate today? And of course, it's always the day where I'm like, no, I'm like a fiery beast. What's meditation, right? Yeah, I really, you know, the power of meditation is so important. And it's, you know, I'm a business coach. I work with people come to me and they're like, I want to, you know, grow my business or do better business. And 9 times out of 10, that's not what we talk about. You know, the first 2 or 3 months, we're talking about mindfulness. We're talking about self-care practices, which is not going to the spa.
Right.
Are you meditating? Are you journaling? Are you getting out of your own way? Are you coming into yourself to create your life and your business? Or are you taking all the information from others to create your business. And that's like meditation is so key. And if you read about any big CEO or, you know, really, really like financially abundant person, they will likely be a meditator, and they will
tapping into that, right? They're tapping into that. They're finding this flow. They're visualizing things. I try to talk with my son about that, who plays baseball. It's not just, of course, you've got to drill, you've got to actually play, and you've got to practice, but you also have to just trust that when you get there to up at bat, now you just get into the flow, because otherwise you're going to sort of defeat yourself, right?
100%. Yeah. So I love that. And that's, of course, what draws me to you too. I want to talk briefly, because you have been, how long have you been married?
We got married in 2001. And so I think it's going to be 23 years in August.
Okay, great. I talked to
a lot of clients. And I married him when I was 23. So I've been with him as long as I was as old when I married him. I'm like, we're getting old.
Yeah, it happens. That's what happens. But I want to talk about this for a second, because I think you've been through a lot. You've built a lot. You know, this last year I know was really challenging for you guys, because you were moving and building and really unsettled. And that can put a lot of strain on a relationship and a family and a business, right? A lot of clients come to me and they are struggling in their marriage. You've been married for about 10 years more than me. So what is the secret sauce here to having a fulfilling marriage, you know, where you do want to be around? I know that you love your husband, right? And that's the key, is like, how do you stay in love and still want to be together? Like, still enjoy each other?
Right. I do not have the answer. No, I'm just kidding.
But what's worked for you guys? What's worked for you guys?
I think understanding that you're going to have the dips, you know, the lows and the highs, and not feeling like that's forever. And I think that's been a very important piece. I think that maybe right before COVID, I feel like we went through our lowest point of our relationship. And I had to really question, like, are we going to keep going, or are we just going to be done with this? You know, it's like, I think you have to keep putting energy into it. It's the same as if you sort of build a house, but then you never like sand and seal the doors again and never paint it again, right? It just falls apart. And I think it's easy to get into that sort of management of the kids and the life and forget to want the best for the other person and support their highest. So I think that, you know, I remember when he proposed to me, he said, well, he already had like a PhD and I hadn't finished college, because he's 7 years older as well, but I still never finished college. But he said, you'll be the chief spiritual officer, you know? And I went, oh, that's perfect. So then I don't have to feel, he goes, yeah, I would trade everything I've learned in books for what you know about people and how you move through the world. And I was like, okay, so he sees me and he finds value in this. So, okay, I can stand in that and not have to be like, oh, I also have graduated, you know, a university and have a PhD from Pepperdine or whatever. That, you know, we often hang our hat on and say that is it. And then over through the years, I made good money in a lot of these big yoga retreats and trainings. And one year, I think I might have done better than him. And so we flip-flop roles, and he's often much more spiritual just naturally. Like, he's a surfer, things, you know, roll off of him easy. So I think it's just that dance, that back and forth, and just keep recommitting and seeing the bigger picture, wanting the best for the other person, trying not to, you know, like, make them feel bad when they need to answer a call that they have inside of their heart. You know, if he needs to go surfing, great, go. You know, let's not make each other feel bad about what we need to do to feel good, and just keep coming back to love, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when you said, hey babe, I'm going to India with my mom.
Yeah.
He was probably like, amazing. Get out of here.
Yeah. Enjoy the journey. I'm not going to India. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how Nigel is too.
That is another thing. Like, you can have you can afford to have someone help in the home here, which is not something that I would ever have had in the United States. And so we have this extended family of a couple of beautiful women who flutter in and out of our home and help with things. So that also lightens the load for the whole family. And it's just so special. God. Yeah. And
it's legitimately, it's legitimately my favorite thing there. And I remember when we left Nicaragua this last year, I cried almost the whole taxi drive. I always cry the taxi drive to the airport. But I cried this year because, and Nigel was like, okay, what is it this year? Because last year it was like, it felt like home. It was like a really spiritual year for me. I felt more connected to myself than I had in a long time. And so he was like, what is it this year? And I was like, it's our community. It's the fact that when we're here, I'm always supported. Like there's always somebody willing to help so that we could have a date night. You know, there's somebody willing to help watch Ruby or take her or clean or do laundry or cook our meals or, you know, our car breaks down on the side of the road and suddenly like there's help everywhere. And it's, I miss that dearly because I think it is special and what it gives you in your life, right, is the ability to make more time for each other.
Yeah.
And for your business and all the things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that has been huge. Then that helps a lot. So if I was to go to India, but there wasn't anybody backing me up while I was gone, he might be not so happy. So
yeah,
for sure. And that's a conscious choice. We gave away some of the first world comforts for that comfort, for that benefit, right? So
100%. Yeah, 100%.
There's no Amazon, like you said, but you know, you have a hot meal on the stove when you come home, and it's really, really, I bow down in gratitude for that, big time.
100%. And it's always so good.
Yes. And one thing I love too about raising the kiddos here is it's getting easier to get things now, but in the early years, not at all. And so like for Christmas, they would have very basic requests. You know, they wanted some new clothing and a pair of new shoes and maybe a ball, things like that. And so they are not like insatiable because they know they're only going to get a few things. And even now we can't just ship overnight. So they have to really think and be intentional. Do I really want that? What do I really want or even need? And that's been great because they haven't just been like next, but they really appreciate what they get.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a different vibe and appreciation. Yeah, it's funny when I tell people like there's no like mailing system in Nicaragua. So like,
yeah, you can get mail, but it might take a year or two. My friend Julie just said her son got his like birthday present 2 years late. It was like mail during COVID and it just showed up or something like that.
Yeah. It's like unpredictable. So like, don't do it unless you're really committed and you're willing to hold out. Otherwise make friends with a traveler and they will bring it to you.
I know. And there are things that you get freaked out when you're coming back from a visit to the States. I'm like, okay, what do I need? I start to get anxious. It's like always chapstick. Yeah. I need a lot of chapstick.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Vanessa, where can people connect with you? Where do you hang out the most as far as online platforms?
They're just going to have to come to Nicaragua. No, right. I don't hang out anywhere online. You're the only place I'm hanging out online for this whole month. No.
Oh my God, I love it.
They could join for the meditation and I'll send you that information. It's on Zoom and they can just join from anywhere. They can find me on Instagram, although I don't know that information either. I'll send all the links.
I'll put all the things in the show notes so people can connect with you. And I would highly recommend anyone who gets the opportunity to go visit, Nicaragua to go. It's undescribable. I mean, it really is in so many ways.
I will welcome you with open arms. I can't wait to see you next year.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I know. I was like, can we go in December this year? I need to go earlier.
Help me work the front desk a little bit again.
Oh my God. That was my favorite thing. It was so fun to greet people. Well, I love you so much. I'm so appreciative of your time and your energy. And, you know, what you're doing is impacting the world in a lot of ways, because I take what you share with me and I spread it over here. And I know that that's true for all of the people who I've met who travel to Nicaragua. I mean, it's like what you do is really, really beyond Nicaragua. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. I love you too. And yeah, and they can also go on to Growth and Giving and support a kid to go to school. So I'll send you that. Oh yeah. Well. That would be perfect. Awesome.
That would be awesome. That's a great one to add. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Vanessa. I love you, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, babe. Bye.
Bye.